So let's talk just a little bit about this, this etude before we go on to the second one. First of all, obviously this etude is about musical style, about phrasing, about tone, and things like that. One of the first things that you want to consider with phrasing is that you always want to try and keep your line alive. You want to make sure on long notes that you're, like if you have a half note, you never want to stay exactly the same volume on a note that you're on. You're either gradually getting louder or gradually getting softer. So at the very beginning, we have a crescendo marked in that line, which is pretty easy to follow. But in the next line, we've got 2.5 measures with nothing at all marked underneath the line at all as far as dynamics goes. But obviously something needs to be happening as far as the direction of the phrase. When we talk, our voice, the tone of our voice, the volume of our voice, and also the pitch rises and falls depending on the emphasis of the sentence, of the words that are going in the direction of the line in the sentences that we use. The same thing happens with music. So at the very first measure, that first half note, we can't stay at the same volume there. We've got to be doing something with that note. If we play the first measure, if we waited until that point to do the crescendo, the first couple of bars would sound very dull and sterile like what they did there. So at the very beginning, by putting just a little bit of a crescendo on your first half notes, actually all three of those notes, we've got the line that's moving forward. So you can tell a couple of things happen. Musically, the line is more interesting, but also it does something to the tone, too. You notice that the tone the first time seemed a little bit dull, but as you do that slight crescendo, the sound of the instrument changes as the volume changes, and the music becomes more active, more lively. And that's something that you can do all the way through the etude, that just by changing the shape of your phrase and what you do with dynamics like that, you can actually enhance your tone. Just as far as thinking about a direction of your line. Where's another good spot we can talk about that? I tell you what, let's go on. Let's talk a little bit about rubatos in that. When was the measure before the first inning? Of course, we take the second inning. Music like this, we don't want to play exactly metronomically straight tempo all the way through. We need to be able to have places where the music pushes and pulls. Now, obviously, we don't want to go so far that it sounds jumpy or that it sounds like we're playing with bad rhythm. We need to, display that we understand how the rhythm should go. But at the same time, getting into like the end of this phrase, right before the first inning there on the third line. Instead of going, I want to put a little bit of shape on that. You notice how I started just a little bit slow, and it speeds up a little bit in the middle, and then slows down towards the end. And also, there's a little bit of a decrescendo that happens. If you can think of like a roller coaster, when you're going down, down a roller coaster, it speeds up, and when you're heading back up the hill, it slows down, and you're at the top of the hill, you start going down, but it's still going slow, and then it gradually speeds up again. That's a good way to think of the rubato. In this phrase here, you've got fast notes, you're heading down a hill, you start the notes slowly, you gradually speed up in the middle of it, then you slow down at the end of that phrase. Rubato, the term, the Italian word for that, actually means to rob. So we're stealing time from the future, and giving it back in the past. We're stealing it in the past or giving it back. Anyway, we start slow, we speed up to make up for the slow time that we started with, and then we kind of slow down a little bit at the end for what we may have, gone too fast for in the middle. And in the process, the metronome stays the same, and we haven't lost any time or gained any time. But the stuff that we've put in there, it's a little bit more like human beings. We're not exactly, machine-like exactly the same every time that we do something. That's kind of what the rubato does. Where's another good spot for that? I think, you notice, okay, let's talk about the other thing. 1, 2, 3, the fourth line down. You see the breath marks there. There are 1, 2, 3 different breath marks there. And I've written above those words, above those breath marks, lift. We've got, like we just finished playing dee-da-da-da-dee-da-da-da-da, dotted half note in the second inning, you got a chance to take a breath, and we go on and play the phrase. We've just, got a measure and a half of music, and then they've got a breath mark, and another measure and a half of music, and another breath mark, and then another measure and a half, and another. We don't need all of those breaths. So, I mean, surely those breath marks aren't in the music for our comfort, right? They're there because the composer is telling us he wants to do something musically with the phrase. And so I interpret those breath marks more as lists. So you've got a crescendo, or you've got the decrescendo there into the second bar, that repeat sign. We do a slight lift, so it's I went to town and bought a pizza. I went to town and bought a pizza. And not I went to town and bought a pizza. I went to town and bought a pizza. As if it had words like pizza, you lift after that. Pizza, you lift after the next one. You don't really need to take a breath. You can, you know, if it's convenient and if you feel like you need one. But the main thing is that the music needs a lift there. Then on the second line after that, see where it says measure 24, the next line down. There in the second bar, and I think this is a little curious to me, right there, I penciled in a breath mark where he says, or where I wrote phrase up above that. The phrase actually, the next phrase actually begins there, that pickups the F sharp, G sharp, into that next A quarter note. That's the next phrase, and really, I think there is a phrase, an actual phrase. So we've got da 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 dee da 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 da, and then it starts da 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 dee ya da 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 da. It's the same phrase, but with embellishments. So there, I think we really do need a break. We do need to take that breath. And maybe it was an oversight on the composer's part, or maybe it was so obvious that they didn't think they needed to make one. But I think that is a spot where the music needs to breathe, and probably the performer as well. Underneath that it says poco a poco, crescendo, and accelerando. That part gradually gets louder and gradually gets faster. And then measure 29 going into measure 30, the a tempo. And you may have noticed that I actually put sort of drew some long marks under the notes there where it says a tempo. I actually tried to make that sound more like a retard getting into that, because it's musically it's a really nice moment. We've got that nice octave slur into the high A, and after all this movement, so it's been going faster, and all of a sudden it says a tempo, so we've been building faster and faster to a climax, and so it needs to seem slower, and maybe slower than the true a tempo. Well, let's accentuate that. So getting into that, see if I can do that again. We've got it. Just a little bit, we can enjoy that nice musical moment, and it is the a tempo, but maybe slightly slower, and then we can kind of get going back into the regular tempo throughout the rest of that line, which is slower than what we had on the accelerando line, but faster than what we actually started there. Those are nice little things that you can do with the tempo, rubato-wise, where you're not actually playing with a steady beat, and somebody listening to you, they're not really noticing that you're speeding up and slowing down. The music just seems natural. It seems to want to flow that way in a real natural way. So I think that those are important things to do. There is, at the end of the line where I have measure 34, and if you look there, I've penciled in a breath mark right before that forte there. Now, that's one spot where the music doesn't, the way it's marked, it doesn't allow us to breathe, but there are some things when you're practicing that are easy enough to do when you practice and are all of a sudden exponentially more difficult to do when you're in an audition or a performance situation, when you're a little bit nervous. That's a good safety breath, and I think I took it today. A lot of times I didn't when I was practicing at home, but as I got closer to today in my own private practicing, I decided I think I'm going to take that breath because I just feel like it's safer to make sure that I can get that last high A. And if you can do that in a musical way and not breathe after every single one of those, but just in that one spot, that may be a safe thing to do. So you may want to do that. Just mark yourself a breath there and put it in parentheses just as a safety, because that's a very long phrase, and then you've got to end up on that high A. And to me, I would much rather hear somebody be successful at a key point in a phrase and grab an extra breath to do it than to say, well, I can make it, and maybe get the high A, but it's wimpy, you know, and just barely there. So those are decisions that you have to make as a musician, kind of weighing, you know, the pros and cons. Well, the music says I can't breathe there, so by golly, I'm not going to breathe there. But then you get to the A, and if it's wimpy, that, you know, it would have been a whole lot better to take that breath. The music is more important than whether or not you breathe, and the breathing is what's going to allow you to play the phrase correctly. One other thing to look out for before we go on to the next etude, back to the line where it says measure 18. All those breath marks there, be real careful that it's not da 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 dee 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 da dee da dee da 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 dee da dee da dee da. all those breath marks, it's really easy for it to sound choppy. So you want to get as much length out of those notes before your breath marks as possible. Let's see if I can do a little of that for you. Maybe a little bit of extra length on those notes before you grab the note. I heard a flute player describe it this way. Somebody was telling him that he played a recital and they never heard him breathe. And of course, everybody knows flute players have to breathe a whole lot to play those instruments. But what they try to do is they try to taper the note before the breath and taper the note getting into the note right after the breath, unless there's an accent or something on that. But you can sort of disguise your breath by being a little bit this way and a little bit this way in lyrical things. So the music kind of comes down, you grab your breath, and it kind of eases back into it. So it's smooth on either end of that breath. And that's a great example of a line where you really want to work on trying to do that. Any questions about the slow etude? Obviously, tone is a big deal on this. Work on a centered sound, relaxed embouchure, keep your mouth open inside your teeth apart, your tongue down low as much as the range and the dynamic will let you to do that. Try and keep your body relaxed. And let's go on to the fast one. How are we doing for time?
We're good.
Good. 15.
We have about, oh, not 15. We have probably 10.
10? Okay. All right, so let's do the fast one. Breathing is another issue in this one. Oh, my goodness. So I'm going to tell you up front. Hopefully, change slides for you here. I'm going to tell you up front, I am going to take breaths where they're marked. The way I'm feeling today, I think I'm going to take them. Again, it's one of those things where I practiced and I could get through it. It wasn't always pretty. I could get through it by not taking breaths, but I think I want to go ahead and do it.